Alrighty. Okay. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another amazing coffee conversation here at Reiki Cafe University. I am your co-host for today, Isabel Wells, and I am joined by our professor, Chantel, and our Facebook moderator and SRPT graduate, Cassandra. You guys know their faces if you're over in our Reiki Cafe community Facebook group at all, but I am so excited for today's coffee conversation. This is a history making coffee conversation, if you will, because this is the first time that we've done a three-way podcast, coffee conversation, anything. So I'm so excited to have you guys share the screen, the microphone with me today. So welcome, 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 Chantel and Cassandra.
Thank you. I'm excited for this one this morning. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. I'm also really excited. I love third eye. So
Yeah.
Yes, yes, this is such a great chakra to have multiple people's perspectives on, just because, again, third eye is that center of perspective in our lives. And so we all bring something a little bit different to this chakra and this conversation. So if you're watching us over on YouTube, feel free to let us know what you're drinking, where you're watching from. I am currently drinking coffee out of my four-leaf clover mug because
Oh,
I'm in the
cute.
process of moving and I need all the luck I can get this week. So I am drinking out of my lucky mug and, of course, coffee because, as we all know, moving is very intense.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. I am coffee free. I was chasing cats and feeding them, and so I left my cup in the other room.
It's just
I
something that
actually I have two. So I have ADHD. So usually there's like four drinks on my desk, a drink for each thing. I have a protein coffee because I'm trying to drink more protein. And my father also brought me a Tim Hortons to work today. So I also have that.
Nice.
Cassandra, remind me where in the world you're located.
Medina, New York. Actually, I'm right along the Erie Canal.
Okay, you are in New York. I was gonna say I thought Tim Hortons was a
Yep.
Canadian thing. Do they might
It's
is it?
They have it really popular here. I'm not a big Tim Hortons fan. I'm a Starbucks person. I used to work there, so I ended up being a coffee snob. I used to hate coffee, fun fact. Used to hate it, and now I love it. But yeah, we're between Rochester and Buffalo, so two major cities, and we have more cows than people, but that's totally fine. I like it that way.
You are communing with nature all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, we are so excited for today's conversation. Today, we're going to be diving into third eye and all of, again, the aspects of third eye that maybe don't get touched on as often. I think we're all really familiar with the ideas of clairvoyance and our spiritual gifts and things like that. And we've done many, many podcasts and webinars and things on those parts of third eye in the past. But today, what we really want to touch on is what it takes to be able to find that clairvoyance in yourself and how important it is to be really fully invested in your personal healing journey in order to develop clairvoyance. Because I think a lot of us, when either we're starting our spiritual journey or, last week we talked a lot about transitions and how we change as people throughout our lives. And I think when we go through these phases, again, whether you're just starting to dive into your spiritual journey or you're going through, another awakening of yourself, it can feel like our third eye gets clogged or shut down or closed off, and we're left in this kind of dark period of not being able to see. And I would love to start a conversation there because I think just the idea of, we talk about third eye and it's this really prominent, I feel like third eye is the chakra that people know the most. Like even people who aren't in the spiritual community, you say third eye and they immediately know what you're talking about because it's such a strong symbol, even in just general culture. And what I love about third eye is if we really kick it off from that perspective of being able to see, because third eye isn't just, this really spiritual, quote unquote, woo woo thing that everybody knows about. It's also this representation of how are we able to see beyond reality in our lives? Are we able to see the big picture? Are we able to stay connected with, seeing our path forward, seeing where we're going next, all of these different aspects of sight and how meaningful that can be in our lives. So I'd love to just kind of pass the mic to you guys and kick off from there.
I think with the third eye, a lot of the whole thing in society is everyone wants that chakra. Everyone wants to have that clairvoyance. They want to have that vision of sight and seeing. But and so I think a lot of the other elements of our chakra system get a little lost because everyone's seeking that. They want that big aha moment. And I think what happens with that is when we're working through our system and then suddenly there is that awareness or that awakening of the third eye, it also has like that transcendence point of life where you can say, okay, now I do have the vision of sight moving forward, which can also be a little like intimidating when suddenly your mind's eye is seeing things that you've never seen before, or you're connecting to, our other dimensions and our guides and all those kinds of things. But I think, like you were saying, the important part is really having the insight to be able to see into our own future, so to speak, to be able to see more than just the step in front of us. And for me, I think that's a really important way of being able to plan and to see all of the desires that we have. Our goal setting and everything is working with our third eye. And when we have that in balance, that's when we really get to manifest and grow what it is that we're seeking and building.
I love that you mentioned the healing part, Izzy, because that's such a big part of it that people forget. I always tell people that a chakra system is very much like an assembly line. If one part's messed up, then it's just going to trickle down. And I've seen so many people talk about, oh, I can blow my third eye open taking these mushrooms or doing this thing, and I'm going to crack it open. And I'm like, but what if you haven't done that healing? And then you do burst open that third eye. And now you're not prepared for the things you're seeing because they're going to trigger your traumas that you haven't healed yet. And now you've done more harm than good. And I think that healing from the root up is such an important aspect of that gets forgotten. And I could agree completely with Chantel is that that's all you hear about is how do I open my third eye? I need crystals for third eye. I need this for third eye. They want all of this spiritual things without doing the actual work for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when we talk about third eye, there is this, we're at Reiki Cafe, we're so passionate about talking about both the human aspect and the spiritual aspect. And I feel like so often in conversations about third eye, the human aspect of third eye gets lost because it is this idea of like, wouldn't it be cool if I could channel? Wouldn't it be cool if I could, just open my third eye and have crazy dreams at night and like all of these things? Wouldn't it be cool if I could just like transcend while I'm meditating and have these like crazy experiences? And like, yes, wouldn't that be cool? But also, wouldn't it be cool if on the human side, you weren't trying to escape? And for me, I think that's where I come back to when we talk about the third eye and blowing it open or having this emphasis on let's open and awaken our third eye in an isolated conversation, right? There's nothing wrong with wanting to open and awaken your third eye, but when that's all we're doing, it starts to take on this idea of why are we trying so hard to escape our experiences? Why are we trying so hard to transcend or become enlightened or, escape this physical body? And a lot of times it's because, like Cassandra was saying, we haven't done that work to feel comfortable being in our root chakra, being in our physical body and having that grounded presence in our lives. And so I think when we're talking about third eye, one of the questions that I get a lot from students is like, well, how do you know when you're ready to start opening things? How do you know when you're ready to start listening to your intuition or working with your dreams or all these things? And one of the things that I always go back to is, do you feel comfortable being here? Do you feel comfortable being in your physical body with yourself? Can you just sit with yourself, whether that's, metaphorically just being comfortable with yourself or actually sitting in silence for 5-10 minutes? Can you just be here? And if the answer is yes, then that's fantastic because that means that you have that really strong anchor in your physical presence. But a lot of times the answer is no, and that's why I want to open my third eye. People have this idea that if we could just see a little further, if we could just get a little more information, if we could just be a little more connected, then everything would be fine. And I think we miss that understanding that the emphasis on third eye really is more indicative of this desire to escape, And so what would happen if instead of using third eye as a way to escape, we used it as a tool where once we've done the healing and we're really comfortable being in ourselves and in our physical body, can third eye then become a tool to enhance that experience, to deepen our appreciation and our ability to be fully present in the physical body? Because I think a lot of times when we're talking about opening our third eye, what we're really talking about is transcending the pains and the traumas and the memories and the experiences that we haven't healed yet.
I think that, and it also can create its own identity. If all we're doing is focusing on the third eye and nothing else, then it becomes its own identity of what we're seeking and we're trying to label ourselves with. And like you're saying, a lot of people think it is cool to have the third eye open, in which it is. It's an amazing experience. But if you're not grounded and you're not anchored into your physical body and your emotions and your mindset and everything, as Cassandra was saying, that third eye could really run with you. Those experiences can really take you out. And it's important to also know the symptoms in which the third eye opening, what you can feel and experience, because they're, having headaches, having pressures in the center of your forehead, the temples, all the way around, all these different symptoms that can be happening. If you don't recognize too that you're having those symptoms and you think you're sick and all these things, physical ailments are happening, but really it's because the grounding isn't there. And once you get grounded and you're connected and you're pulling everything down into your root system, that is really when that third eye can expand and open. Because that's when I feel that's when you really know, like you're saying, can you sit with yourself? And there was a long period of time where I could not be with myself at all. Like as soon as if I was alone, I was like on the phone with somebody, I was having to watch something, do something. And now it took me a long time, but I would just turn off everything and be in silence. And that's how I learned to actually sit with me, because what was happening was my thoughts were taking me to all the places I didn't want to go when I was alone. And then once I healed that, it was like that whole third eye experience was able to start taking on its own form. I didn't have to push it. I didn't have to force it. It just naturally started happening because I was healing me. And so then it was like, okay, now you're ready to have this experience.
I agree completely with that. I was one of the people who was like, well, how do I open my gifts? How do I do this? How do I do that? I want to do this. And my problem is I want to learn all of the things all at once. And you can't. It's too much. But that's my personality. And I was that person who would try to compare myself to others and my gifts to others. And I'm like, stop, you're on your own journey. You're your own person. It's going to unfold when the time is ready. And I had a similar experience where I couldn't sit still. There's days where still certain days I'm like, I can't just sit there. I'll sit there and then I'll start running through thoughts and I'm like, oh, I got to go do this and this and this and this. And I take my deep breath and I'll really ground myself and sink those roots in. And I'm like, okay, but why do I feel I have to get up right this second when I can just sit here for 5 minutes and allow myself to be in this moment? And I think that's a huge thing, is just remembering to be present in your person, in your body, and being comfortable with who you are. And that's a big part of the healing aspect. And it is fantastic when third eye is open. It's really great. You see amazing things. But I think too, when people are starting to develop those clairs, they get worried if they're not seeing things or hearing things or smelling things. They're like, well, why can't I see anything? Why can't I feel this energy? And then they start to really stress about maybe they're not going to have clairs. Maybe they're not good enough. And I think a big part of developing third eye in general is just being graceful with yourself and remembering that every person is their own individual being. And you don't have to be like somebody else because you're not meant to. There's only one of you. And that means you're going to be individual with regards to your abilities and what you see and what you hear. And there shouldn't be an expectation to have to see and feel and hear and all of these things, just to accept who you are and what your third eye is to you. I also feel when people don't have that healing and they start to see things in third eye, that's when I notice people will get really consumed by past lives they view or other things, and they get sucked in and they're all about this past life and they have to know about this past life. And that's when you question, why is that life so important? It's already happened. Be present now in this one. And then they can kind of lose themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really easy to get lost in third eye again, especially if the reason that we're approaching third eye is because we already feel lost in ourselves. Like there's that amazing quote of, as above, so below, as within, so without. And thinking about how the state that you're in personally is going to be reflecting itself in the work that you do, in the people you surround yourself with, etc. And so when we're doing third eye work, if we are doing it to escape, if we're doing it because we already feel lost within ourselves, then chances are really good we're setting ourselves up to be lost in our third eye chakra. And something that's so important about the chakras to talk about is the fact that they are naturally open and balanced. Our chakras are
Mhm.
naturally open and flowing and balanced. And so when we talk about needing to open this chakra or activate this chakra or do things to heal this chakra, there's a moment of what if we reconsidered that and we come back to that understanding that our chakras are naturally healed and open and flowing. And so instead of the question being, how can I quote unquote fix this chakra? How can I heal this chakra? How can I awaken my third eye? What if we brought that question back to, why is it closed in the first place? Why is it feeling like there's a wall there? Because in a way, there's not a wall there, right? There's an
Mhm.
inherent state of openness and flow that we're just not able to access. And so the question shouldn't necessarily be, how do I get the flow going again? But how do I come back into being able to connect with the flow that's already there? And I think in third eye, this one is really poignant, and we can really see that in third eye because a lot of times the reason that our third eye, we start to feel disconnected from it is we have a traumatic experience or we have, a spiritual experience that leaves us feeling really scared of our spiritual gifts. One of the storylines that we hear a lot from members of the community is, well, when I was a kid, I was really open, I could see things, I had an imaginary friend that I talked to, or I could see ghosts or whatever, and I would tell my parent, my guardian, my teacher, my somebody, and they would say something along the lines of, oh, we don't talk about that. We don't see that. Or no, honey, that's just in your imagination. That's not actually real.
Mhm.
And we learn to shut it down. We learn to stamp it down. And furthering that and pairing that with the difficult experiences that we do have in our lives. Because if, as a child, you have this access to other realms and to energy and to being connected with something that's beyond your world, we naturally take a lot of comfort out of that because we are spiritual beings. And so, if we're told to disconnect from that, we grow up with this inherent sense of something's not quite right. I'm not connected where I'm supposed to be. I'm missing something. And that sets us up for the rest of our experiences in life, especially the harder ones, to be that much harder because we already feel like something's wrong, something's missing. And a lot of times we end up contributing that to the fact that we're disconnected to our spirituality. And then we see things like, religious traumas popping up and things like this. And so it really does start to snowball, which is why coming back to that question of what caused me to disconnect in the first place? What is feeling like it's keeping me stuck, what is feeling like it's keeping me from connecting to my third eye, can often be a lot more potent and powerful as far as healing goes, because we're looking at what's actually the root problem instead of just trying to blast open a chakra when we're not ready, because our energy and our souls are incredibly wise in how it handles where our energy is flowing and what is open. And it knows how to give us information that we need in the moment. It knows how to take care of us. And so chances are, if you're feeling disconnected from a chakra like third eye, there's a reason for it. And so we can nurture ourselves and honor our experience by looking at what the reason is, then trying to kind of short circuit the work that our soul's been doing to keep us protected by just blasting it open.
I think that's a really great point. I heard this analogy not too long ago that was saying if you were to look like if you were scuba diving and you have experience with this, but um, the meteor that looks down, so the lens that can see down, That's our soul. Our soul will show us this small part of the ocean, where our ego wants to see the entire ocean, right? So that's how I kind of see it with the third eye, is people want to see everything right now, here and now. But our soul, in its infinite wisdom, says, no, you're ready to see this much right now. So we're going to give you this much to see so you can grow and expand with it. Because even on a physical level, it's too much for our nervous system. If all of a sudden you hear that, the Kundalini awakening, or someone who's like fully asleep, and then has this awakening, and suddenly it is blasted open. And then it's like years of repair because they weren't prepared for that. And I have a person, actually a family member, that's she shut it down when she was younger because she was afraid of the things that she was seeing. She wasn't prepared to see and experience what she was. And now it's actually created health issues in her because she's been blocking herself. And which is kind of what you're talking about when we create, well, the opposite effect, but we can create blockages in ourselves too, that make you sick as well. And so we're working on helping her heal those limiting beliefs and opening herself back up to her own healing, so that whatever she's meant to receive in the wisdom of her third eye or whatever, that she's going to receive that, instead of blocking it and suppressing her emotions and her feelings and everything, which is counterproductive when our body is ready, when we are physically ready to start seeing and doing and feeling.
I think that's a huge societal thing too. A lot of the reason people end up pushing that down is parents and family, whether it's religious reasons or just the taboo things in society. My middle son started seeing ghosts when he was 3, and my mom was warned of this from a holistic healer. I was like, there's no way. And then he saw my dad who had passed away, and I was like, oh, okay. But I nurtured that, and he'd be like, there's a ghost walking outside. I'm like, oh, really? I was like, do they look lost? Do they look like they belong here? And I would try to have him move forward with that, and teach him that he can ground and that this is his space. And I think a lot of people just don't know how to handle it. And that's why so many children get told, nope, ghosts aren't real. They don't exist, is because the parents have their limiting beliefs or their misconceptions, and it's just passed on to the children, and it goes generation after generation after generation. That in society too, which is what's so great about Reiki Cafe community, is it's such a great place for people to come and ask questions and be like, hey, I had this experience, can you guys help me through this? And it's a fantastic place where there are no expectations of what you should and shouldn't be doing or seeing. So for anybody watching, if you ever have any kind of experience like that, or you are questioning it, I mean, post in the group, everybody's here to help.
Yeah, we're definitely like think outside of the box kind of a community. Bring all the questions.
People come in, they'll come in my store. They're like, I have a weird question. I'm like, weird, try me. I've heard it all.
And I think that's the great thing about third eye, is it does give us this opportunity, whether it's, when we're healing our personal traumas and experiences, and we have these questions of like, am I the only one that feels this way? Or XYZ happened to me and now it's causing me to act in this way. Or it's this spiritual thing of like, I saw a spirit guide who said that I should do this. And I also keep seeing like 777 everywhere. And what does that mean? Like when we start having these questions that feel bigger than ourselves, because that's really what third eye is calling us to do, is expand our perspectives. And as we're starting to heal, and as third eye is starting to come back online and kind of reconnect to our energetic system, we do start to expand beyond ourselves. And when that happens, the questions that we ask get labeled as, oh, this is a really weird question, but, because we feel like that's the only way to kind of qualify the fact that we're thinking in a new way, we're experiencing new things, we're becoming aware of more. And so it does feel weird and it does feel uncomfortable because it's new to our experience. But it's so important to be able to cultivate a space both within your community and then also within yourself, where you can look at those things in a really kind and honest way. Because I think there's actually, in psychology, there's this phenomenon known as the hostility bias, which is just, we have this inherent fundamental belief that we and others are fundamentally bad, that we are out to get each other, that something, if someone's looking at us, we immediately think, oh, there must be something on my face, or they don't like me, or they think I'm weird, or whatever. And so we kind of wire ourselves to protect against that by saying things like, okay, I know this is a weird question, but, and so we kind of put that qualifier on it. We put that, yes, I know this is weird, but also, can I just share it? And so when we create a space where we do feel safe to be seen, and we do feel safe to express that side of us, even if we still feel the need to put that, I know this is weird, in front of it, that's okay. But the important part is being able to have a space where you can first acknowledge those thoughts and experiences in yourself, and then be able to share them with others and get that feedback and start to feel less alone. Because a huge part of third eye is, again, expanding your perspectives. And as we expand our perspectives, that starts to include a lot more people and a lot of other people's perspectives. And we start to create this kind of network around the world in a way of people who are starting to see life from this third eye perspective. And if we keep ourselves cut off, if we keep ourselves isolated and thinking, especially if we start having shame responses, or feeling like we're not worthy of expressing this, or whatever that might be, that fundamental feeling that something is wrong with you that we were talking about earlier, that fundamental lack, if we start letting that control how we're acting, we do isolate ourselves. And that active isolation is, it creates a lot of impact in all of your chakras, but particularly in third eye, because then we're collapsing that perspective again. We're keeping ourselves within our own realm of perception and existence, when if we can have a space like Reiki Cafe community, or a really close friend, or whatever it might be, to just say, hey, this is what I'm experiencing, in a really kind and compassionate and honest way, and just allow ourselves to be witnessed. Again, that act of sight, of letting someone else see you, it can awaken your own ability to be able to see yourself and then see others in return. And it starts to snowball, but this time that snowball, that process, is one of expansion and gratitude and acceptance, instead of feeling isolated and cut off and scared. And I think one of the things that is also really important to talk about in third eye is the fact that when you're doing this work and when you're starting to heal yourself, there might be that process of having to look at things about yourself that you don't particularly love. And I think that's really important, because it's, again, when we're expanding our perception, we're expanding our awareness of who we truly are. We're shedding that light in those dark corners that we've stayed away from. And it's also really important to understand that that's an ongoing process. There will always be new things to learn about ourselves and how we're processing things. And the kind of inherent reaction that we have is that feeling of shame, or of, oh, I can't believe I'm like that, or I'm disgusting, or I'm bad because I'm doing XYZ. And again, that brings us back into that closed off perspective. But if we can have compassion for ourselves, and when we're looking at, just this morning, I was doing a journaling exercise because I've been in the midst of a lot of transitions in my life. And I've noticed that some of the ways that I've been handling them, I haven't been particularly proud of. I've had a lot of trauma triggers pop up in the past week. Things that I thought, oh, I'm good, I've healed from that, all the things. And it's so easy and natural to let the immediate reaction be, I didn't do a good job the first time I tried to heal this. I should be better. I should know better. I should have done things. Now other people are mad. Now I'm a failure. Now that all these things that our mind tells us. But if we can breathe through it and let ourselves sit in that awareness of, first of all, there's always going to be something new. And the understanding that when these things are coming to light, it just means that our awareness is expanding. And that now, just like we were talking about with our soul and its infinite wisdom only showing us what we're ready to heal, that means that this thing that has been so deeply buried, that has been so shoved into the dark, we are now strong enough, capable enough, compassionate enough, open enough to be able to look at it and heal it. And so in a way, it's that calling to honor our soul's wisdom and honor our soul's experience, in that it is giving this experience to us so that we can heal it, because it knows that we're ready, because it knows that we can be compassionate and open enough to do the work. And so we can honor that by staying in a space where we are open, where we are compassionate. Because if we were to kind of close that off and be like, oh no, that can stay in the dark, then what are we doing? We're denying our soul's inherent wisdom. And that to me is always really helpful when we start doing this work in third eye, is remembering that these things are coming up for a reason. And so can we honor that reason? Can we honor that healing potential that's there?
Mm-hmm. And going back to having being with like-minded people, so that when you are open and explaining your experiences and everything, you're not being shamed, you're not being ridiculed, because we all understand it. Like, we can come here and have this open conversation. The majority of our listeners are going to completely understand what we're talking about. Like, they're going to be open. We're open to this. But in society, when you go out and you're surrounded by people that don't understand, the really good thing about being open is the intuition that comes forward, that gives us the silent nudges of knowing, okay, you know what, this isn't the group to communicate that with. And if so, it's because you're planting seeds. And I'm all about planting seeds, right, of awareness and consciousness and Reiki and everything, because those who don't know, sometimes all they need is that one voice, that one seed to plant. And on its own, as they venture back off into life, it will start to unravel and open up for them. And so for me, it's very interesting to witness that happening, and then all the questions that come from that, and the awareness and everything on their path. And as Reiki practitioners, we're not here to awaken people, but when those nudges can be given and those seeds can be planted, and that little light bulb of awareness and conscious awareness, it's like so amazing and satisfying to watch, because I'm like, we're all here, we're all one, right? We're one energy, and we're all like connected and doing our thing. And so the more people who are awakened, the more light that we have, the more our planet's going to lift, especially with everything that's going on right now. So I think really being surrounded, having that, at least that one friend you can really communicate with, connect with, and say, this is where I'm at, and just have that ping pong ball kind of conversation back and forth. It's really fun. And I think that's what people are really looking for, is that they want that awareness. But like you're saying, with when we are connected with all of our chakras, like right below that's the throat, knowing when to listen, knowing when to speak, having that greater awareness of what it is. And that's when the third eye kicks in and says, okay, I have the awareness of this because I've already worked here and I've already healed that. And all of this is going on. So I just think it's a beautiful system all the way around.
I completely agree. I love third eye. I think my favorite thing in the community and within yourself, once you have third eye open, is really that intuitional nudge that comes when you're in places that might re-trigger traumas. For example, I was just stuck home for a week with COVID with my kids and my husband all in the same house for 5 days. And I was like, oh my God. And then I started seeing more of the messes I don't normally see. And that triggered traumas from when I was a child, and how I can't do well in the messy environment. And then it was a battle between, do I nurture them or do I clean the mess? And I really was able to sit with that. And third eye was like, hey, you're here for a reason. Now is time to address that. And I love when you can look at situations like that with a third eye perspective and find that deeper meaning and say, okay, why am I in this situation right now? Why is this presented to me? What do I need to do to heal this and kind of start working through it again? And because, like Izzy said, there's always going to be something new. And you might think you healed it. And it's not that you didn't do a good job. It's just that sometimes it's a slow process, and we have to be graceful with ourselves as we move through that, because it might be stagnant for a while, but something will bring it back up. And that's where you can use your intuition and say, okay, how is this situation different than the past? How can I learn from it? What's different in this perspective than before? How am I looking at it a little bit differently now that my third eye is open? And what messages can I pull from that? And like Chantal says, I really think community is the biggest thing. I always recommend people have a really good support system, whether it's one friend or a group of people to go talk to, because we need to be able to bounce those ideas off of people. Or again, we end up in that shame where we're like, why is this? I must be crazy. Nobody really thinks about this. I'm losing my mind. I've had so many people walk in and go, I'm losing it. I belong at a psych ward. I'm like, no, you do not. Just take a breath. I'm like, it's not that bad. I promise. But I feel that that support system is a huge, huge benefit.
I always tell people congratulations when they come and they're like that. I'm like, congratulations. And they're like, what are you talking about? Everything's falling apart or this is happening. And I'm like, yes, but it's
Yep.
for your highest good. It's happening because things are being and aligned for you and being removed for your highest good. And it just doesn't look like that right now, but it
Yep.
will.
I'm like, welcome to the spiritual club. And I just had a conversation recently with someone. I was like, would you look now, knowing what you know, knowing how open you are? Could you imagine going back to where you were before and not knowing and seeing spirits? And like, I look at the people who aren't open and I'm like, how could I live like that? I feel like that's just not me. I was so disconnected from that part of myself. And now that that third eye is open and I'm seeing things and feeling things and able to look inward in my experiences, how did I not do that before? It's like unfathomable that I lived that way. But it really is. It's an entire lifestyle change when you can really look deeper into yourself and pull those healing intuitional messages out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'd
And I
never go
think
back.
yeah, that's the thing. I always think about that. There's that scene in The Matrix where they have like the two pills, and it's like, which one do you want to take? You can go back and you can forget, or do you want to take? And there are so many times I think on this spiritual journey where we have those moments of why did I choose to see all the things I would like to go back now? Because it's in a way it's easier. But at the end of the day, we get to this place where if we really had to choose and we really sit down and ask ourselves, would I have wanted to go back? It's like, no, because there's just so much, it feels like the difference between living life in black and white and living life in color there
Mm-hmm.
is so much that we can connect ourselves to and that we can become part of. And that's something that I love about Third Eye because, we talk about connection and love and all the things in heart chakra all the time. But one of the things that we don't talk about when it comes to third eye is the fact that third eye gives us the opportunity for connection with something beyond the physical world. It gives us a chance for connection with our guides, for connection with energy, for something that's deeper and bigger and more than just this physical world. And it gives everything we do, everything we say, everything we feel that much more meaning. And one of the things that inevitably comes up whether we're working with clients or students or what have you is that moment when a student says, what if I'm making it all up?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, when you come into third eye, it really does feel sometimes like, am I just making this up? Am I just pulling this out of midair because that's what my brain wants to do? And inevitably there's that feeling of like, I'm just being a child. I'm just playing pretend. And there's so much we could say about that, but one of my favorite things to tell students is like, okay, let's say that you're making it up. Let's say that none of this is real and you're just pretending. Who's to say that if you hadn't started pretending, if you hadn't stepped into the spiritual world, that wasn't pretending? That wasn't pretending that there's not something beyond, that there wasn't pretending that you were okay when you weren't okay, right? All of these things that's a natural instinct, right? Someone asks, how are you doing? You say, oh, I'm fine. Is
Mm-hmm.
that not pretending? We are always, as human beings, we are always pretending about something. And I don't know about you, but I would so much rather pretend to live a life that is colorful and fulfilling and connected and where there is magic and there is something beyond this physical reality and where I can find meaning in the things that happen through me and the things that I experience and the people that are in my life. I enjoy having that level of meaning in my life. And even at the end of the day, if it's all made up, at least I had fun while I was here. You know what I mean? And I think if we can bring it back to that perspective, it takes that pressure off of having to have it all figured out or having to have proof that this is real or all of the things. It's like, yeah, there will always be that potential that we made it up, right? There will always be that maybe because we're human, right? We make mistakes. We don't know. Our soul knows. But we as humans, we don't know. And so there's always that kind of gamble when it comes to anything spiritual or religious or anything like that. But that's part of it. Is can you let yourself step into that trust that there is something beyond. And because the more you do that, the more you start having experiences of, I remember one of the first times that I was practicing Reiki via distance. I was one of the first people that I practiced with was this man who was in India. Okay. And I'm in the United States and this man was in India. And I was like, I don't want to know anything. I don't know anything about what you're experiencing, I don't want to know. And I did his session and it was very root chakra oriented. And I remember feeling like one of his hips was like slightly out of alignment. And because I have, a nursing background, I could feel into like his anatomy if there's a very strong tendon that runs across your hips. And I remember thinking like, there's just something not right here. And so I spent a really long time in his root chakra working things around. And by the end, his energy was flowing and it was really great. So I messaged him and I was like, here's what I experienced, because again, we were students, we were open to sharing and getting feedback in that way. And I said, here's what I experienced, here's what I was perceiving. Any ideas? And if I remember correctly, he had either just had surgery or was going into surgery on his hip because of that tendon. And it's like there's no way I could have known that. It is not possible for me to have known that. So either I am really, really good at making this stuff up, or there's something to it, And it's like either way, to me, at the end of the day, does it really matter? Because at the end of the day, we both had that experience. We both had this really magical, eye-opening experience that left us both feeling more aligned, more connected to ourselves, to each other, to the spiritual world. We felt more open. And so when we're going through this third eye healing and we have those moments of, well, what if I'm just making it up? There's so much work that we can do there and things that we can do to show ourselves that we're not. But when we get stuck on that one, it's like coming back to, even if you were, isn't it worth it? Isn't it worth it to have that expanded, open perspective and not feel like you're just sleepwalking?
Yes, absolutely.
It feels like, yes, it is.
I would way rather live on the spectrum of possibilities than to be stuck in that black and white, reality. And so for me, yeah, definitely. There's a lot of experiences that aren't fun when we're going through this and the healing process and all of that. But the end result, even though we're not at the end, but still wherever point you're at that end result, it's so gratifying because it's just, you get to see everything from that different perspective. You get to look at the old version of yourself and say, I give thanks to you for helping me get to where I am, but now I give thanks to where I'm at too. It's like, I want my future self to be able to look back on who I am today and give thanks to me, like for doing the work that I've done. And I do feel like that definitely has happened. And working with people, actually, when you were talking, I was thinking of the movie The Giver. And that movie is amazing. And all of the experiences like that of just coming back into a sense of reality that I think has been like taken from us. And a lot of people are awakening to that perspective now. And so it's not like it used to be when you spoke like this. Like I was saying, I was receiving downloads freaking 20, 30 years ago when that wasn't even a term. And the fact that I even downloaded the term download, and now everyone's like, oh, I received downloads and all this. And I'm like, that is so funny. There's truth in it. And that's how I see that. You can't take millions of people that have the same terms, the same experiences, and the same, visions or whatever, and say, we're all crazy because it's just not possible, right? We're all here and we're all connecting. And it's just when you get to that place in your life where your third eye is open, where you can accept yourself, be accountable for your own actions, and to allow the healing to happen, it's a beautiful place to be. And so I don't feel there's, for me, any level of regret at all, because it's like I said, it's got me where I'm at. And so that's a great thing. And I get to have conversations like this with you ladies, and that's just, just so much fun. So
yeah, I wouldn't take it back for the world. Not never. And like Chantal, like you said, when you can find these connections or people have the same experiences, like in SRPT and ASRPT, we will do journeys. And I'm like, if this is all pretend and this this is all made believe, then how come we can all journey in the same person and multiple people within the group will have the same experiences or the same symbols show up or the same areas? I'm like, there is some source of truth to it. And I tell people, I'm like, I have a science background, I have a biology degree, but I'm still going to tell you that it's real because there is. Everything's energy. We learned it in physics 101 in high school. So there is, I'm like, protons, neutrons, and electrons. It's just they vibrate at different frequencies. And I always bring people back to that. But everything's, there are connections that we can't deny because of these experiences. I had a similar experience to Izzy where I was new to doing Reiki, and I had a client come in just a quick, she just wanted a scan, and right over the stomach, I was like, I'm thankful their eyes are closed, because I was like, oh, what is that? And they left. And then the daughter told me that morning she had just gotten called and diagnosed with stomach cancer. I'm like, oh, that's what that was. Okay. And those little things that, again, that's why I think community is so great, because the more we see that other people are having experiences or other people have seen this or use these terms, and we know that it's not all in our head and that we're not crazy.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. So, ladies, I would love to wrap up today's conversation with just like a quick fire round of, if you could go back and you can remember that time where, you know, your third eye was awakening and you were in that phase of, I think I might be a little bit crazy. I think I might need help. And give yourself one piece of advice, or two pieces if you need it, because I think there's so many things we could say about this. But if you could give yourself something to help make that process easier and to help make that transition easier, what would it be?
I remember 20 years ago or so, I was able to start like saying things before people finished it. I was seeing things happening. Like I would tell someone like, be careful with your ankle, and then they'd roll their ankle, like immediately after or whatever. And there was some things that happened that started like kind of freaking me out. And I think I actually delayed my own awareness with my third eye, because it did freak me out a little bit. I wasn't prepared then for it. And so if I had any advice for that, I would have embraced it. Because I think even though there are experiences that have shaped me, they're not experiences I would necessarily want to go through and live through again if I didn't have to. And I think because I blocked my own action, I created a delay or a diversion or something, of new experiences that I had to go through to make sure that awakening was coming. Because I do believe I'm where I was always meant to be right now. And Reiki was always coming into my life and all this was coming. But I think I did a detour from my soul's journey, my soul's path. I took a detour, learned all these additional lessons that I might not have had to have learned if I would have embraced it in the moment. And if I would have said to somebody, I'm having these experiences, and someone said, yes, because this is happening, cultivate that, help it grow, help expand it. You're working through your own healing, whatever. And for myself, I didn't do that. So that would be my advice. And my advice to anyone, if you're going through it, just be patient with yourself, embrace it, take it slowly. Don't, it's not a race. We're not here to win anything. We're just here to grow and learn who we are, and to really embrace that side of ourselves.
Yeah, I think I was similar, where I started finishing sentences. I never saw things ahead of time, but I would pick things up and I'd be like, hey, something's wrong with your mom. And they're like, how'd you know? I'm like, I don't know. And it was almost like that. I was like, people are gonna think I'm crazy that this is going on. I think I would give myself two pieces, something along the lines of what Chantal said, is be graceful with yourself. It's you know, we have these experiences. There's no, just accept it and be willing to learn from it and allow it to grow as it's supposed to. The second thing is, I know there's other people like myself who, when they notice that this is happening, they start reaching for anything and everything that they can possibly get their hands on to learn. Don't do that. Because that can actually almost like send you in a downhill spiral, because then there's so many different things that you're trying to do all at once, and it becomes so much that you can't focus, and again, it delays the process because now you're not fully learning anything. You're doing my ADHD self, picking a little here and a little there and a little there, and you don't have a full foundation to grow from. And when it comes to third eye, there's so many different possibilities and different spiritual gifts that you want to learn about all of them. Just slow and steady, pick one at a time and fully dive into it and feel into it. See if that's where you resonate. If not, continue to move forward. But don't do everything all at once. It's chaos.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think of back. I think one of the things that I would have told myself is trust that voice that you have inside of you. You know, I think when we start working with third eye, we have these internal instincts of like, well, what if I just did this? Or, you know, if we have to make a choice, there's that little teeny tiny voice in us that always knows what decision we're supposed to make. And I think a lot of times, I remember for me, it was hard to listen to that voice at first because it was so small. And there was that part of my mind that felt like if it's such a small voice, it can't be the right one. I should be listening to the loudest voice and not the quiet one. And I think part of third eye healing is learning to listen to and trust that quiet voice. You know, it's part of a poem or it might be a Bible verse. It's like tickling my brain right now of like that still small voice. Do you guys know that phrase that I'm talking about? I don't know where it comes from, but that's, you know, that's what I think about when it comes to third eye, is that like that really quiet, still calming voice that's in you that just knows, and letting yourself be open to making mistakes, I think, is something that held me back when I first started my journey with coming back into connection with my third eye. There was so much of me that was afraid to listen to that small voice because I was afraid that it was going to be the wrong decision, or that, you know, people were going to laugh at me or whatever it might have been. And I would tell myself that, first of all, that voice is there because it knows what you need and it knows where you need to go, and it has that wisdom that it is going to be okay. But even if you can't lean into that, lean into knowing that it's okay if you make a mistake. It's not the end of the world. Be open to learning and being in progress. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. Kind of like what Cassandra was saying too. It's like you don't have to do it all right now. So just listen to that little voice, take it one step at a time, and let yourself see what happens, and let it be a process, because I think that's really important. Is it doesn't happen overnight, you know, and I don't think it ever ends. I don't know about you guys, but I think it's you know, it changes, and the way that journey looks shifts, but there's always going to be more to learn and more to explore and more things to heal. And it doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong or that you're not, you know, you're not healing fully or any of those things. It just means that you're on that next evolution. There's that concept of the, you know, the shaman's ladder, which is basically this idea that life exists on a spiral, and you just keep going around, and your perspective keeps expanding and getting more profound and more aware, but you're still just walking up those rungs of the ladder, and you're gonna circle back around to things that you thought were healed, not because they weren't healed, but because you're ready for the next step and you're ready for the next expansion and the next rung on that ladder. So I hope that this conversation was helpful, that it resonated with you all, that it has inspired you to reconnect with your third eye. If you had any aha moments, or if you have any questions, if you are in that space of feeling like you're a little bit crazy and you need a community, know that the Reiki Cafe community over on Facebook is the perfect place to share your takeaways, ask your questions, come into connection with a community that is experiencing the same things and is ready to be open and compassionate and kind in this journey of expanding your third eye. And Cassandra and Chantal, thank you so much for joining me today. This was so much fun.
Thank you for having us. I loved doing this, and hopefully there's another conversation that we can all hop on again and create this again. So
thank you. It was a lot of fun. I was really excited to do this, and I think there was a lot of moments and pieces that came up that were very beneficial.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Thank you all so much for tuning in, for committing to your healing journey, and we'll see you next time.
bye.